Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kendrick. Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Before we get into everything football, Ron Rivera announced on Friday, I believe, that Monday was going to be his last day of cancer treatment. So today, he should technically be getting his last treatment for his cancer, and then after that, it's going to be kind of a waiting period, and they're going to see if everything starts going into remission, if it works. I am hoping for the best. I really am. Ron Rivera is a great man. He's a great human being, a wonderful family. He's just a good man, and I'm really hoping that everything goes according to plan. Cancer is one of the ugliest things that can happen to people. I've had 2 members of my family die from cancer, and while it was because they smoked cigarettes and they ended up getting it that way, cancer nonetheless is a very, very ugly thing. The process of it is emotionally draining. It's physically draining for everybody involved. It's painful to watch someone go through it. It's painful for the person who's going through it. So I am hoping for the best for Ron Rivera. With that being said, we have quite a bit I want to get into today. I want to talk some Antonio Brown, recap some Thursday Night Football. I want to look ahead to Monday Night Football, and we're going to talk about some more Aaron Rodgers because he had some quotes that I thought were just absolutely hilarious. But nonetheless, let's get into this. So, Antonio Brown has officially signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I gotta say, I honestly did not see it happening, and I'll get into that in a little bit as to why I didn't see it happening. But Antonio Brown went to the Buccaneers, and it's kind of funny, right? Going into the season, there were all these stories, all these headlines. One of the big things was Antonio Brown, Week 8, is going to be eligible to finally come back. Will a team want to actually sign him? And it was starting to seem like maybe the league is kind of done with these people. And I kind of compare it to Earl Thomas. Now, Earl Thomas didn't do nearly as much as Antonio Brown. Let me make that very clear. He didn't do nearly as much as Antonio Brown, but Earl Thomas punched a teammate, and since then, he has not been even brought in for a practice. The Texans were reportedly going to bring him in. Then it was reported that the locker room said, "We don't want him here. But please don't." And it was reported that Dallas might want him, and they never ever brought him in. And the Ravens, they literally said, they cut him and they said, "We would rather have you off of our team, not hurting our culture, not punching our team, not punching our players, and you can go ahead and just be a free agent." And to this day, Earl Thomas has not been brought in for a team. I don't know if his career is over. He might have to come out and do some kind of an apology thing. I have no idea. But Antonio Brown, everything he did, I don't feel the need to recap everything, but just remember, cut by the Steelers, signed by the Raiders, cut by the Raiders, on social media, posting garbage, the allegations against him from 2 different women for things that he has said and done to them. It's just a whole mess. It is a whole mess. And the league finally decided they were going to suspend him for half the league, for 8 weeks, and he didn't even have to be on the team. It was just once those 8 weeks were over, a team could sign him. Now, reportedly, Brady has been clamoring for months for the Tampa Bay to sign Antonio Brown. But Bruce Arians said that he didn't want to. In fact, this is kind of the funny thing, right? So, Bruce Arians was asked at the beginning of the year about signing him. But even in March, he was asked about signing him. Here are some quotes from Bruce Arians. He said, "Yeah, it's not going to happen. There's no room, and probably not enough money. But it's not going to happen. It's not a fit here. I just know him. And It's not a fit in our locker room. He's too much of a diva. Now, why would Bruce Arians say this? Because he was with the Steelers when Antonio Brown was there, young in his career. Like the first few years of Antonio Brown's career, I think maybe the first 2 or 3 years, Bruce Arians was there. He got to see Antonio Brown before he got his big payday. And then once he got his big payday, that is when you could basically say the monster came out that was Antonio Brown. So Bruce Arians knows firsthand what Antonio Brown is. Now the reason why Tampa Bay makes this signing, I firmly believe, is all because of Brady. If Brady was not there, if Jameis Winston was there and he was clamoring for them to sign Antonio Brown, there is no way in hell that they would sign Antonio Brown. Jameis Winston, I don't believe, has that kind of cachet. And even though Brady, this is his first year in Tampa Bay, you can technically say he shouldn't have that kind of cachet there either. Brady has 6 Super Bowls. He is renowned as the GOAT of the NFL. He's the GOAT quarterback, the greatest career of all time, one of the greatest pure passers of all time. Everything. He is going to have that kind of cachet. He just is. Even if it's not necessarily with Tampa Bay, his own football acumen, his own mind, his status in the league, everything, that is where his cachet is going to come from. There's no way Tampa Bay makes this move if Brady is not the quarterback and Brady hadn't been clamoring for it. And now you kind of look at it, right? You look at Tampa Bay's receiving options. Get a load of this. You have Mike Evans, you have Chris Godwin, you have Scotty Miller, who really, maybe outside of Mike Evans, I mean, Scotty Miller is like his favorite target. And now you have Antonio Brown. And that's the couple with Gronkowski at tight end, who's getting more and more involved in the passing game, and Cameron Brate. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, but O.J. Howard. Look, am I the only person who looked at O.J. Howard for what he was? He was a fast tight end who wasn't very productive. That's O.J. Howard. But then they have the offensive line that they do. Ronald Jones is emerging as a number 1 back in this NFL, and he's emerging as maybe you could say a top half of the league back. I'm not going to say he's top 10 or anything, but a top half of the league back the way that he's playing. And you just think about it. All the weapons Brady has to throw. They could realistically bring out a 3-receiver set or even a 4-receiver set, and they can have their option of putting Antonio Brown in the slot where he's better than probably anyone who's going to be covering him. You can put him outside where he's probably going to be better than anybody who's covering him, and it's just the rich keep getting richer. Going into the season, a lot of people looked at the Cleveland Browns as they're probably the most talented team when it comes to the skill positions. Their offensive line, best in the league, next to the Colts. The Colts, their receiving core of Beckham and Landry, and whoever their third receiver is. Sometimes it's Higgins, sometimes it's somebody else. And that two tight end set of Njoku and Hooper, and that running back stable of Chubb and Hunt. Like, who could beat that out? I still think you could realistically say that the Browns have a better running back stable than the Buccaneers, but everything else, wide receiver, they now have 4 of them. And Brady still loves Scotty Miller, so I don't think Scotty Miller's role is going to necessarily be decreased in this offense. I think, if anything, they're just going to go to more 4-receiver sets. And they're just going to say, hey, Brady, throw the football. Where do you want to go? Who's open? And they still have a defense that is dominant. Even without Vita Vea, their defense is still there. Tampa Bay, the rich keep getting richer. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Tampa Bay is now the overwhelming favorite to make the Super Bowl, but I will say this. The defense is there to stay. Barring any more injuries, this defense will still finish as one of the best in the league. Probably going to be finishing as a top 5 defense. That secondary is better than people, and myself included, imagined it would be. And their offense isn't putting the defense in harm's way the way Jameis Winston did. So that defense is there to stay. The only thing that can get in the way of this Tampa Bay offense is the offense itself. The Browns' offense, when people looked at all the talent on this offense going into the season, they said, who can stop this offense? How are you going to cover both Landry and Odell and Higgins and Njoku and Hooper? How are you going to defend everybody? Well, the thing is that the offense has gotten in its own way, whether it be penalties or the simple play of the quarterback. Baker Mayfield hasn't been great, therefore the passing game itself hasn't been great. When it comes to Tampa Bay, Brady has been graded as a top 5 quarterback this season. At times, I think he's been like top 4. At one point, he was number 3. So Brady's performing very, very well. And while he is checking the ball down a bit more than Jameis Winston ever thought about doing, and a bit more than any quarterback ever thought about doing in a Bruce Arians offense, with Antonio Brown, with Scotty Miller, with Mike Evans, with Chris Godwin, every single snap that there's a passing play called, somebody will be open. Somebody is just going to be open. Because you can't double anybody. As soon as you double one person, everyone else gets single coverage. If you go to zone, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they can dominate a zone. They all have a good catch radius. Mike Evans, of course, he's 6'5", so he has a great catch radius nonetheless. But Antonio Brown has always played bigger than he is. Chris Godwin isn't a huge receiver either, but he's a great route runner, has great hands. He has shown himself he can go up and go catch the ball. Scotty Miller is a great slot receiver, is really quick, faster than most people on defense. Just the only thing I believe that's going to stop this team from succeeding is really 2 things. Is the penalties, because the Buccaneers are still one of the most penalized teams in the league this season. They were last season, they are again this season, and it would be, if we're going to be honest, Brady's age, if his arm starts to get tired. Now, they've been making an effort to run the football, and I think that with the kind of success they are having running the football, they'll be able to not necessarily have to lean on Tom Brady's arm. But it is something that you do have to monitor. Drew Brees' arm has not looked the same this season, and the same with Phillip Rivers. I think the only older quarterbacks you could really say where their arm is kind of look the same is like Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan. But other than that, Tom Brady, while he has looked good thus far, and I think they'll continue to look good if they continue to run the football and save his arm a bit, I think it's just kind of the thing of, does Tampa Bay maybe look at all these weapons they have and think to themselves, we have to throw it? And this is when I kind of want to change the conversation. So 2 other teams were in the mix for signing Antonio Brown, and it was Seattle, overwhelmingly. It seemed like they were going to be the favorite to sign Antonio Brown, and the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens because Marquise Hollywood Brown is there, Antonio Brown's cousin, and Lamar Jackson is there. I never thought it was going to happen. And I never thought it was going to happen because they got rid of Earl Thomas for doing less than Antonio Brown has done. So why would they have ever signed him? I thought that was ridiculous. And then when it came to Seattle, again I thought it was ridiculous. And I guess I'll go ahead and I'll put my stance out here right now. I think that the Ravens and the Seahawks really dodged the bullet. I've been talking about how great it can work with Tampa Bay from a skill perspective. From a skill perspective with Antonio Brown, he can fit in anywhere and he can fit into any offense. His attitude is a whole other thing. I don't know how he's gonna feel in Tampa Bay. Antonio Brown historically has been about he wants his catches, he wants his targets, he wants everything. He's now sharing targets with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Scotty Miller and the tight ends. Where does he fit into that? How many targets is he going to get a game? So that's why I'm also kind of, it'd be concerning of, does Tampa Bay feel like they need to throw the football 30, 35 times a game to try and get him his targets, to try and make everybody happy and get everybody involved? And so then I look at Seattle, and I never quite understood why it is that people thought Seattle would sign him. Remember, Seattle legitimately shipped out Richard Sherman and Michael Bennett, and then they didn't re-sign Earl Thomas, all because of locker room problems. We talk about the Ravens and their culture that was established by guys like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Shannon Sharp, so on and so forth. You look at Seattle. Since Pete Carroll got there, and especially since Russell Wilson got there, and that Legion of Boom defense, Seattle has had one of the strongest cultures in the NFL. And as soon as some guys started to open their mouths and talk to the media about how Pete Carroll was playing favorite to Russell Wilson, and they felt like Pete Carroll was kind of sabotaging the team, and Russell Wilson was a bit too soft, whatever the case may be, all of a sudden guys started getting shipped out. Bennett gets traded away, and Sherman just gets released, and they don't re-sign Earl Thomas, and Earl Thomas's last image in Seattle is him flipping off Pete Carroll. I never quite understood why it is that people thought he would go there. And I get it. Russell Wilson really likes Antonio Brown for whatever reason, and he practiced with them, all that stuff. I did read a report that said and this was by Pro Football Talk, there was some speculation that Seattle might have leaked that they were interested in Antonio Brown because they didn't want to tell Russell Wilson no. So here was kind of the thinking of it, right? They went ahead and they leaked it because if a team like Tampa Bay sees that Seattle is really considering signing Antonio Brown, they might make an even more desperate push to sign him before them. That way, they don't technically need to tell Russell Wilson no. They can just go, oh, well, Russell, we tried, but he went ahead and he signed with Tampa Bay. There's now 2 instances between Russell Wilson and the Seahawks in which they both talk to each other through the media. Russell Wilson reportedly likes tweets and acknowledges like Patrick Mahomes and the offense they're running and does these things like with Let Russ Cook. He does it through the media, so he doesn't need to tell the organization that he wants to change the offense. He would rather do it through the media and let the fans talk and let the media talk, let people on sports, radio, and TV talk, let them tell the Seahawks to let Russ cook rather than he tell them. And now a report comes out that Seattle, the organization themselves, Pete Carroll and Schneider and these guys, that instead of telling Russell Wilson, no, our offense is fine, in fact it's better than fine, it's the highest graded offense in the NFL by Pro Football Focus, at least entering into this week, you're telling, they can't tell that to Russell Wilson, so instead they would rather leak that they're interested in Antonio Brown in the hopes that another team would swoop in and sign him. Am I the only person who thinks that sounds really, really concerning? This marriage has been together since 2012 when they drafted Russell Wilson. And you're telling me these guys can't talk to each other? What is going on? This kind of sounds like some passive aggressive, this sounds like something that would go on in Green Bay. Right? Everyone they give Mike McCarthy crap and they give Aaron Rodgers crap because of the passive aggressiveness and all the stuff that kind of went down between the two and everything, and how they didn't really talk to each other. Everything was passive aggressive and no one really actually aired their grievances to each other. This sounds like that, but it's in Seattle. Why is it that these guys can't talk to it? Why can't Russell Wilson go and tell Pete Carroll and John Schneider, hey, I want to run an offense like the Chiefs. I want to throw it more. I want to stop running the football so much. Let's not run it on first down, and let's not run it on second down. Let's actually throw the football. Alright, I'm the best damn quarterback in the NFL. Can we throw it, please? Why on earth can't they talk to each other? In Seattle, it's a multi-million-dollar business. It's a multi-million-dollar corporate, and they can't tell Russell Wilson, hey, Russell, look, we love you. We have great weapons already. We don't need Antonio Brown. Now, don't get me wrong. The thought of seeing DK Metcalf out there lined up out wide and seeing Antonio Brown on the opposite side and Lockett in the slot, or Lockett outside and Antonio Brown in the slot, don't get me wrong. It sounds beautiful. It really does. That sounds like, it'd be wonderful to watch. But I am concerned about Antonio Brown as a human being. I am way more concerned about Antonio Brown as a pure human being. His talent is great. It is. His talent's outstanding. But I am concerned about what he could do to the locker room. And I'm not gonna lie, I am kind of concerned about that when it comes to Tampa Bay. I am concerned about what if he still brings an ego, right? Has he been humbled? This whole situation, I think for most people, would humble them, and they'd realize how quickly their job, how quickly their career could be gone if they don't change their attitude. So the best case scenario is that Antonio Brown comes in and he just works. He doesn't talk, he doesn't bring the ego of this guy who season after season was 110 plus catches and 1,300 yards and 10 plus touchdowns and has realistically had a Hall of Fame career by the numbers. He doesn't bring that ego, and he just goes in there, fits in where he fits in and plays football. That's the best case scenario. That the Antonio Brown back in Pittsburgh and for his short stint in Oakland, now Vegas obviously, but his short stint with the Raiders, that Antonio Brown doesn't come back. But I don't know. I have no idea what he's been doing. I don't know what he's been doing since the start of the season. I know that I think he went on some podcast and did some talking, and I mean, he still posts occasionally on social media. I don't know, I don't follow him. I try not to follow him, because it got to the point where his tweets were just getting ridiculous, and it's hard to understand his tweets anyways. But the worst case scenario is that Antonio Brown gets there, and that in the first game or whatever, he maybe gets like 4 targets, maybe he gets 2-3 of those catches for not much yardage, and his role is just kind of that. That's just kind of his role. And then he explodes because of it, because then he gets irritated because he's playing all these games, he's playing all these snaps, and he's not getting the targets. He's doing all this work, but he's not really getting to put it up on the stat sheet. That is the worst case scenario for Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham, some of these other guys, they were regarded as receivers who didn't really care if they won or lost, just as long as their numbers looked good. If their numbers looked good, they felt like they were contributing, they felt like they did their job, and that's all that mattered. I don't think that's true about Odell Beckham. I can't say the same thing for Antonio Brown. I feel like that's exactly who Antonio Brown is. There was a game in his last season with Pittsburgh, where, what was it? I think he got mad, he flipped a water cooler, he got angry on the sideline, and he was upset because of his lack of targets and lack of catches. The next week, I think Ben Roethlisberger threw him like 20 balls, and he caught double-digit passes. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they lost. I think it was against Jacksonville. Ben Roethlisberger did exactly what Brown wanted him to do. He fed him the football, and they lost, and after the game, Brown didn't say anything. He didn't seem mad because he had his numbers. That is who Antonio Brown has been in his career. From the time he came into the league, to when he got his first contract extension, to now. It's who he's been. So when I looked at Baltimore and these other teams who maybe thought about signing him, I was like, don't. Why would you? You don't need to. I get it, having his talent is great, but you can't separate the talent from the person. You know, he's going to bring his attitude there, so I don't know how it's going to work out. I hope the best, because I don't want to see him make Tampa Bay implode. I don't want to see reports that he's getting in arguments with the coaching staff and Brady and the other receivers because he's not getting targets. I don't want to see that. I'm happy as a Seahawk fan. I'm happy he's not there. Again, the talent-wise, it would have been beautiful. But you can't separate the talent from the person. The only reason he is in Tampa Bay is because Tom Brady wanted him there. Now, Tom Brady, he just better hope it doesn't backfire. If this season starts to go haywire, if reports start coming out about his attitude, and let's just say in like 4 weeks he gets cut, and in that point in time, the relationship has kind of been fractured with the team, that is the worst case scenario for Tom Brady. It will reflect so poorly on him because he is the whole reason he came there. And if their season goes haywire as soon as they sign him, it will fall on the lap of Tom Brady. You know, I believe in second and third chances. I do. I don't know for what Antonio Brown had allegedly done in some of the screenshots I saw of messages he sent. I don't know. But, hey, you know, I hope his brain is right, and I hope that he has learned the error of his ways, and that he can move forward trying to be a good citizen. Anyways, coming up next, we're going to talk some Thursday night football, recap the Giants and the Eagles. I thought it was a really good game, given the teams are both terrible, at least record-wise are both terrible. We're going to get into that coming up next.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment talked about Antonio Brown to the Buccaneers. Look, I think from a talent perspective, he's going to fit in great because now basically every single snap that they have either 3 wide receivers out there or even 4 wide receivers out there, somebody is going to be open. There's no way any defense in the NFL is going to cover every single one of those receivers. There's just no way. There's too much talent, there's too much speed, too much all-pro ability to cover all of them. My problem, however, and my worry would lay with Antonio Brown and whether or not his attitude has been fixed. That is why I think Seattle and Baltimore and any other team that even relatively considered signing him, I think they all dodged a bullet. Because who knows what you get with Antonio Brown? Some people said he has bipolar disorder and that he's just not right in the head and that's just kind of who he is, and he surrounds himself with yes men, and anyone who challenges him, he kind of cuts them out of his life. I don't know how it's going to work, but for whatever reason, Brady seems to love him and thinks it can work. Maybe Brady can reel him in. Maybe he's the one guy Antonio Brown will listen to because he is the GOAT. I have no clue. But hey, 1-year deal. Tampa Bay realistically could cut him, and I don't think it would cost them, it wouldn't, do anything to them because it's just a 1-year deal, but I think it would just reflect poorly on Brady if this relationship doesn't actually pan out. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and get into this. So, Thursday Night Football between the Giants and the Eagles. Let me talk about the Giants first of all. The Giants should have won this game. Evan Ingram had a terrible drop, and if literally all he had to do was catch the football, and the Giants would have kicked a field goal, there's no guarantee it would have gone in, but let's just say, there's a great chance it would have gone in, and the game would have been out of reach. The Eagles weren't moving the football fast. All of their drives took multiple plays. They had nothing cheap. There was no cheap touchdown, no cheap big play, nothing like that. They would not have had time. The score would have been out of reach, and the Giants would have won the game. But that's not how it worked out. The Giants, 2 turnovers, and they had a chance to drive and win the game, and not only did they lose on a Daniel Jones turnover, it was another fumble. Daniel Jones, keep this in mind, right? Because this is incredible. He's played in 19 games. He has started 18. He's fumbled 23 times, and he's lost 14 of them. Daniel Jones has almost as many lost fumbles as he has games started. That is incredible. He has more fumbles already than games he's even played in. That is terrible, and that is the thing that's going to cost Daniel Jones his job in New York, is the simple fact that he can't hang on to the football, and he's become a turnover machine. His rookie year, Daniel Jones shocked everybody. Let's go ahead and let's be honest. He shocked everybody. People looked at Daniel Jones coming into the draft and they said he played at Duke. What is Duke? Duke is known for basketball, not football. Look at his stats. It's not even good. He barely looked like a college quarterback. Why do people think he's going to be good in the pros? Well, people talk about his link to the Manning family and Cutcliffe, who was his quarterback coach, and how much he helped the Mannings and how much he could help Daniel Jones. And people just thought that correlation meant maybe he can actually he can translate it to the league. And lo and behold, Daniel Jones was better than I think anyone expected him to. He actually showed he had great mobility, something that the Giants haven't had since they drafted Eli Manning. He has great mobility. He actually has great speed. It was on display against the Eagles. He ran 80 yards. Should have been a 90-yard touchdown run, but it wasn't because he tripped over himself because I think he ran faster than his own body could could handle itself. I think his top speed was like 21 miles per hour, which is insane. Daniel Jones can move, and he can throw. I think that was the big thing, right? He got the nickname Danny Dimes. He can actually throw a really nice football. His arm isn't the strongest in the league, but it's fine. He doesn't throw the most accurate football in the league, but it's fine. And realistically, you'd say that he should only get better. His offensive line isn't great. He's under a lot of pressure. So the same thing that Eli Manning had to deal with, right? An inaccurate quarterback who is behind a bad offensive line is only going to be more inaccurate. I honestly like Daniel Jones, and I like a lot of what he brings. I think he's a smart kid. And if it wasn't for his fumbling issue, if it was just the interceptions, I think the Giants would be able to deal with it. Because young quarterbacks, they struggle with interceptions. What young quarterback, outside of guys like maybe RG3 and then like Russell Wilson in recent memory and Aaron Rodgers, I mean, what young quarterback in really their first season as the starter hasn't struggled with interceptions? It just happens. The game is a bit faster. The defenses are a bit more complex. You make some bad throws. You make some poor decision throws that you can make in college, but not in the pros. It happens. But the problem with Daniel Jones is he's fumbling at an all-time rate. No one has ever fumbled the football the way Daniel Jones has. I mean, when you touch him, the ball comes out. People gave Josh Allen the same kind of crap earlier in his first 2 years in the league because he was fumbling at a ridiculous rate too. Now he was able to recover some of them, and this season he hasn't been nearly as bad with fumbling, but it does still happen. But you look at Josh Allen out there playing, he's ridiculous. And this might be a situation where you deal with any of his fumbles that he might have. Daniel Jones he's not Josh Allen. And some people, they draw the comparison to Adrian Peterson because he's had a fumble problem and it never quite got corrected. Adrian Peterson's one of the greatest running backs of all time. Daniel Jones, at least at this moment, is not. He wasn't an all-time great talent coming out of college, going into college, nothing like that. He was a guy who was looked at as maybe the system they ran at Duke because it was more pro style. Maybe he can translate into the NFL better than people expected, and that is what has happened, but he's going to fumble his way out of the Giants. I don't know if he'd fumble his way out of the league, because Jameis Winston, he has a job right now and he just threw 30 interceptions. Maybe another team would be willing to give him a shout as a starter, maybe as a backup. I have no clue how it would work out for him. But as much as I like Daniel Jones and I think he has a real shot he could have a real shot of being a good quarterback in this league, if he can't hang on to the football when he takes a sack, it's never going to work. Because you're not going to get hit, you're not going to get sacked. I love his mobility, I love his intangibles, I think he has the work ethic and the support system even outside of the Giants. I think he has the pieces with his connections to the Manning family and Cutcliffe. I think he can be good, but if you turn the football over the way he does, you won't last. Look at Mark Sanchez, look at Blake Bortles, look at Jameis Winston, who's better than all of these guys. Even all the talent in the world Jameis Winston has, 5,000 yards and 30 touchdown passes, means nothing when you also throw 30 interceptions. It's just kind of the way it is. Now, as for the Eagles, I think the Eagles can win the NFC East. As I said before, ESPN, they have the Eagles winning the division at 6-9-1. I think the Eagles can win this division. Now, I looked at their schedule. I see a bare minimum of 4 more losses. And I see them losing to the Browns, the Seahawks, the Packers, and the Saints. Does anyone disagree with that? If you do, then I'd like you to explain why. Let me explain why I think they're all going to lose these games. The Browns' defensive front will overwhelm the Eagles' offensive line. That Eagles' offensive line has not been good. It wasn't good against the Giants. It hasn't been good all season. Carson Wentz, outside of Joe Burrow, is the most hit, sacked, pressured quarterback in the NFL. And it will continue against the Browns. And then you look at the Browns' offense, their offensive line, and the talent they have, and if Baker Mayfield just has, at this point, an average Baker Mayfield game, that means he will keep his team in the game, and he might hurt his team a little bit with a turnover or two, but all in all, He will manage the game, and they'll run the football effectively, and they can beat the Eagles. The Seahawks. Russell Wilson, are we really going to doubt Russell Wilson against this Eagles team? Every single time these teams have met up, Russell Wilson has beaten Carson Wentz. Russell Wilson has never lost to Carson Wentz. I don't know how many times they faced off against each other, but the games were never really competitive. Russell Wilson in the Seahawks will beat the Eagles. The Packers, that pass rush, Aaron Rodgers, that offensive line against the Eagles, really? Are we going to take the Eagles over them? No, I didn't think so. And the Saints, again, their pass rush, the offensive weapons that they have. By that point in time, I would imagine their offense is all the way healthy. Are we really going to take the Eagles over the Saints? I didn't think so. Outside of that, though, the Eagles still have to play the Cowboys twice. The Eagles still have to face the Giants again. They still have to face Washington again. I think they have 4 more losses minimum on their schedule. They could easily have more. Now, if they just lost these 4 games, that would put them at 8 losses. ESPN has them winning with 9 losses and 6 wins. I can see at least 8. I can honestly see them losing again to Washington because that defensive front is still there, and their quarterback situation at this point is better. Whether it is Allen or it's Alex Smith, the quarterback position is better. So I think they could lose that game. The Cowboys? Are we just going to say that the Cowboys are going to lose that game? I think it would be another shootout. I think it'd be high scoring, but are we just going to say that the Cowboys are just immediately going to lose? I don't think so. Now, the Eagles' pass rush against the Cowboys, that would scare me, because the Cowboys' offensive line can't stop anything at this point. But I don't know. I think it kind of be a toss-up between the two. And then as for the Giants, again, the Giants had that game won if Evan Engram just makes that catch. All he has to do is make that catch, and the Giants win the game. So I don't know. I think the Eagles can win it, but if they do win it, here is what they have to do. Carson Wentz needs to be spectacular, and he needs to look like he did in his 2017 season, in which he should have won the MVP if he had stayed healthy. If Carson Wentz can play like he did then, this team can win. Now, obviously, the difference between the team that year and even this year, or last year, really is the offensive line. The 2017 year, the team stayed mainly healthy outside of Carson Wentz at the end of the season. Last year, the offensive line stayed healthy while the receiving core got hurt. This season, the tight ends, the receivers, and the offensive line are all hurt. The running backs are hurt. They're down to backups at every single position outside of center and right tackle when Lane Johnson is actually on the field. If they're going to win this division, Carson Wentz needs to be that playmaker, but he also needs to not try and be so much of a playmaker that he hurts his team. Because one of the things that they've pointed out is that guys like Carson Wentz, guys like Kyler Murray, guys like Baker Mayfield, some of these guys try so hard to make a play for their team, whether it be running to the right, running to the left, throwing back across their body, whatever the case may be. They try so hard to make a play that they force themselves into a bad play, and it results in a turnover or just a bad incompletion. They take a hit they don't need to. They fumble the football. That's what ends up happening. And Carson Wentz at the moment is among the lead, tied for the league in interceptions with 10. He's thrown more interceptions this season than touchdowns. It has not been a good year for Carson Wentz. Now, going into the game against the Giants, Pro Football Focus noted that at least his play against the Ravens and the Steelers, those 2 games combined, at least through that 2-week span, he was the 9th-ranked quarterback in the NFL. For that 2-week span, he was the 9th-ranked quarterback, whereas before that, he was ranked in like the 30s to low 20s. He was one of the worst in the league. So his play is getting better. I think Peterson's going to have to be masterful with his play calling. They're going to need all of these guys, these practice squad dudes, these undrafted dudes, these rookies. They're going to need these guys to step up and play the best football of their career. And they need Carson Wentz to play inside of himself, but to also be that dude. They paid him the contract that they did because they believe in him. When you make that kind of money, there is the added expectation that if things are not going right, if you're battling injuries, that you can uplift the team and you can still win. They look at guys like Brady and Rodgers and Russell Wilson, these guys who have shown you can give them subpar pieces and they can carry the team to victory. Rodgers has had seasons where his receivers were Randall Cobb and Jones. I don't remember his first name, but the guy who wore what was like 89, 88, something like that. But in Jones, who was out there wearing a hoodie under his jersey playing, and he can lead the league in touchdown passes, right? He can run the table to 10-6 and look incredible. Russell Wilson has shown that with a below average offensive line, with the worst offensive line in football, and nothing but basically Tyler Lockett, that he can lead his team to victory, and he can look damn good doing it with Pete Carroll still trying to run the football. And then Brady, it's just give him whatever you want. Edelman, if he's out, doesn't matter. If Gronk's out, doesn't matter. And he still manages to win. Carson Wentz needs to do that. He doesn't, now granted, he has less than I think all of these guys have ever had in their career, right? Rodgers has never had a supporting cast this bad. Russell's never had a supporting cast this bad. Neither has Brady. I don't know if there's a quarterback in the league right now who's ever had a supporting cast this bad. Maybe Mariota his first year, because that was terrible. They put him out there with complete trash, to be blunt about it. But I think the Eagles can win, because I don't believe in the Cowboys, and I don't believe in the Washington football team, and I definitely don't believe in the Giants. I don't really believe in the Eagles either. I just think it will come down to which quarterback in this division has the highest ceiling, which quarterback has the ability to play at the highest level, who can play higher. And I think it's Carson Wentz. I've seen him throw 30-plus touchdowns, 4,000 yards, have a great touchdown interception rate, carry his team to one of the top records in the NFL in general. Not just the NFC, but the NFL in general. I've seen him do it. I've seen him play at the highest level. I've seen him be a top 5 quarterback by QBR and by Pro Football Focus and be an MVP candidate and should have won the MVP if he hadn't gotten hurt. I've seen him do it. Andy Dalton hasn't done that. Daniel Jones isn't doing that. And whoever on the Washington, whether it's Haskins or it's Allen or it's Smith, none of them are doing it either. Carson Wentz has the highest ceiling of them all, and I think that's why people judge him so harshly and why people expect so much out of him is because they know what he can do, and he hasn't been doing it. This season, look, he's surrounded by backups to backups to backups. It's a mess right now in Philadelphia, and it's just the hand he's been dealt. He has, for whatever reason, Philadelphia over these last few years has just been injury plagued. If it's not Carson Wentz, it's the receivers, and if it isn't the receivers, it's Carson Wentz. This season, while he's healthy, for the time being, everything else is not, and he just needs to work with it. And it's kind of funny, right? So I went in, and I've done a lot of talk about strength of schedule, because I looked at the Patriots and I said, I think they're going to struggle because they have the number 1 schedule in the league. I looked at the Niners and I said they might struggle because they have a top 10 schedule. The Jets, Dolphins, it's the same deal. If you look at the Eagles and the Cowboys and where their schedule was ranked heading into the season, the Eagles had the 25th ranked schedule. Easy mode. Dallas had the 30th. And if you look at both of these teams, they are among the worst in the NFL. Now, granted, it's not all their fault, because they're also two of the most injury-plagued teams in the NFL. I think Philadelphia is the most injury-plagued, and I don't know who number 2 is. I would assume it's probably Dallas, because they're missing their entire offensive line outside of their left guard and their center. All their all-pros are gone, at least in the moment. I think Zach Martin, he's supposed to come back. He's in concussion protocol, at least the last thing I saw. So I don't know, he should be back at least for the next game, you would assume. But then, of course, they lost Dak. They lost their starting tight end. But everybody else is there. For Philadelphia, it's backups to backups and undrafted dudes and practice squad guys all over the place. Carson Wentz is bailing water. The ship is sinking at a very, very fast rate, but he's bailing water and he's doing the best he can. And as for the Cowboys, Andy Dalton, the captain went down, and the ship is sinking, and all your best crewmen are going down, and he's bailing water himself. It's very, very interesting how the season shapes out. You head into the season thinking easy schedule, your team's healthy, all this talent. It's time to make a push, and hell, 6 games into the season, you're sitting there like, oh, we're done. Oh, our team is screwed. Oh, this is this is over. What happened? Underachieving, injuries, whatever the case may be. This is the NFL, and this is why you love the NFL. The parity's great. And this season, more than any other season I can remember, I have no clue what the Super Bowl is going to look like. I don't know what team's going to get affected by COVID next. I don't know how many people are going to be affected by it. I don't know how many people are going to come into contact with them and just get screwed over because of that. How many people are actually going to test positive for it? This season is crazy. 2020 in general is crazy, and I'm very excited to see what these playoffs look like. So coming up next, we're going to do a Monday Night Football preview between the Bears and the Rams. And my final topic of the day, some quotes from Aaron Rodgers. Stay tuned for that because I think they are hilarious. A lot of people panicking for the Packers, and I just don't think it's warranted. More coming up next.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment did a recap of Thursday Night Football. When it comes to the Giants, I think the Giants play hard. I like some of their defense. I think that their defense is well coached, and they're playing above their skis. And then when it comes to Daniel Jones, he's just been doing what he has done his entire career so far, which is fumble the game away. And I think that's ultimately what is going to make him lose his job in New York. I like his talent. I think the kid can play, and I really do think he has the skill to be an NFL starting quarterback. The problem with him is the problem with Jameis Winston. It was the problem with Blake Bortles, was the problem with Mark Sanchez, and I think he might even be more talented than guys like Mark Sanchez and who was and like Blake Bortles. I think he has more talent than them, not Jameis Winston, but you cannot fumble the ball at a historic rate in the NFL and expect the team to want to keep you. If the Giants get that number 2, number 3 overall pick, a number 1 overall pick, even if the Jets manage to win a game or 2 more than the Giants, they will draft another quarterback. They just simply will. When it comes to the Eagles, I think they can win the division. I just think Carson Wentz is going to have to play amazing, but he's also going to have to play inside of himself and not try and do so much that he ends up costing his team like he was doing earlier in the season. So with that being said, now let's go ahead and let's preview Monday Night Football. So Monday Night Football is going to be between the Rams and the Bears. And the last 2 meetings of these teams, they met in 2018, they met in 2019. This is the 3rd straight year they're going to meet up. And I think the only team that this game is really going to mean anything for is the Rams. And here's why I say that. So to talk about the Bears for a second, I've already said, I think the Bears are frauds. Their defense isn't the same as it once was. Then again, this year in general isn't going to be great for defenses. There are very few defenses you would really say game in and game out are elite, and you'd say it's like the Steelers and it's the Buccaneers. Those are like the two top defenses everyone talks about. The Patriots because of what they do, because of Bill Belichick. But other than that, every other defense, I mean, it's kind of week to week. How are they going to perform? Some defenses we thought were going to be good are actually not that great, and the Bears are one of those defenses. The Bears defense ranks at the moment, or at least heading into this game. It was 9th in total D, it was 19th in total yards, it was 18th against the pass, 17th against the rush, and 11th in scoring. It's very difficult nowadays with the league being so offensive leaning to stop any offense. The area that the Bears have made their money, though, is in scoring. They have been able to keep other teams within distance, within reaching distance, so their offense hasn't had to go out there and score 30 points a game, even higher than that, like teams like the Seahawks, or teams like the Cowboys, or teams like the Falcons have to do, because their defenses just aren't that great. The offense continuously needs to score. You could even say the same thing with like Tennessee. Their defense just isn't that great. Right? Their defense gives it up, and their offense needs to score. They need to control the clock. The Bears haven't necessarily needed to do that. While their Bears can be had through the air, and they can be had on the ground, when it comes to scoring, it's a bit more difficult. More often than not, they will force you into field goals, or they will just turn you over. But no, even with that being said, I still think the only team that this game is going to tell, at least specifically me, anything about is the Rams. The Rams thus far. Can we look and see who they've beaten? The Rams right now are 4-2 heading into this game. They've beaten the NFC East. They've beaten every single team in the NFC East. The NFC East has a combined record after Sunday, I believe, of 7-20-1. I think the next closest division is the AFC East. Something about the two East teams. But the AFC East is the next closest. Most of the wins have come from the Bills, and of course most of the losses have come to the Jets and everything, and their division just isn't great either, but they're the next closest team. The NFC East is by far and away the worst division in the league, and that is who the Rams have gotten their wins against. Their two games outside of the NFC East, they've lost. They got dominated by the Niners. I don't care what the score said. I didn't think the Rams looked good at any point in time during that game. And their other loss came against the Bills. And you can say whatever you want about the last call. Look, calls happen, right? The Rams had a call go in their favor earlier in the game, and then the Bills had a call go in their favor late in the game, and they ended up winning it. It just is what it is. The Rams are basically 0-2 against the rest of the league, and they're 4-0 against the NFC East. Well, they have no more games against the NFC East, so now we're going to get to see what they really are. If they lose this game to the Bears, all it's going to tell me is, or maybe someone won't tell me, but it'll start making me think. It'll start making me question, like I was with the Steelers, it will start making me question how good really are the Rams. So again, the Bears defense, they give up the yardage, but they don't really give up the points. That's the one area that their team is good in. When it comes to the Rams, they are top 10 in everything in offense except for scoring. The one area their team is not great in is scoring. And when I say not great, I mean they're not even top 15. They're number 19. Heading into this week of football, they were 19th in points per game. Now, granted, this season has been an offensive explosion. Every single week, a new record's being broken for points scored in the season through this many weeks and so on and so forth. The Rams are scoring like 25 points a game. Like, I think it's like 25.2, 25.3, something like that. Like, they're not scoring sub 20, they're not scoring sub 15, they're not an anemic offense. It's just that there are 18 teams that have been better than them at scoring. The one area that the Bears have been good at is holding you to field goals or limiting your touchdowns or just turning you over. Those have been the areas that the Bears have been good at. They will not let you score in bulk. I don't have the high that they've allowed this season. I think the high they've allowed was maybe like somewhere in the 20s, somewhere around there. Whereas of course the Rams, they have allowed 30. I do not believe that the Bears have allowed 30 at any point in time this season. So, I guess that's kind of going to be where the rubber meets the road. It's going to be what gives first. Will the Bears' defense finally not be able to hold an opposing offense? Or will the Rams finally be able to be a higher scoring team? Will they finally be able to kind of be a top half of the league scoring team instead of a bottom 13 team? Again, they're not scoring below 20, but there are teams that have been way better. In fact, there have been more teams than not that have been better at scoring than them. The Rams, they get it through the air, and they get it on the ground. They're top 10 in both categories. Scoring is not it. So they kind of play right into the Bears' favor. And you can say I'm being unfair. You can say that I'm not really giving them a chance. I'm putting them in a lose-lose situation. And I agree. I kinda am. I'm putting them in a lose-lose situation. If they beat the Bears, from my standpoint, they beat a team with an inconsistent offense that isn't very good. Their coach has to scheme everything for Nick Foles because the book is out on Nick Foles. If he's not playing in Philadelphia, you don't have to worry about too much. Is he an upgrade over Trubisky? Yes. As an athlete, no. He doesn't necessarily fit this NFL better, but he's more accurate, he's more willing to throw the ball down the field, and he's more accurate with those passes. He's not as timid as Trubisky. You lose the mobility, but I think you gain a better leader. You gain a guy who's more calm in the pocket and everything. But he still doesn't play great, right? Didn't play great with the Rams. I blame Jeff Fisher. His 1.5 games he played with the Chiefs, he didn't look great. And then, of course, with the Jaguars, he didn't look great. And then he got hurt. And then he didn't look great again. And he gets traded. And outside of, 2.5 quarters or 2 quarters against the Falcons, he still hasn't looked great. So if they beat him, okay. And if they lose to them, I'm just going to say, okay, so now they're 0-3 against all teams not in the NFC East. What am I supposed to make about that? I am being consistent. I think the Rams need to play a real team with a real quarterback, and then we can talk. I said the same thing about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is when I want to get into a bit of Pittsburgh. So following their win against the Tennessee Titans, I looked at the game, and going into the game, I said, I predicted Tennessee to win. And I honestly thought I was going to get to come on this show, and I was going to get to say I was right. Now, to start off the game, right, it was 27-7? I did sit there and I said, oh, okay, so Tennessee's defense is going to screw them. That's really what this is, right? This is a team that's all offense and no defense, and a team like Pittsburgh that does have a defense that can limit an offense, especially when their bread and butter is starting with the run game, and their offense can actually score the football. So this is what I get. I'm gonna have to come out here and I'm gonna have to say that I was wrong, whatever the case may be, and I have no problem saying that, but I thought I was gonna be right. And even then, even with Tennessee losing the game, I came away from that game saying, oh yeah, no, Tennessee's real. Like, this Tennessee team is a real team, and this is the possible problem with Pittsburgh. Ben Roethlisberger throughout his career has been an interception machine. He has never been shy of throwing the ball deep. He's never been shy of having 2 interception games, 3 interception games, 4 interception games. Hell, I think in the Saxonville year, I think he threw like 5 in that one game. He's never been afraid to air the football out, and he's one of those guys where you love it about him, but you hate it about him. He can shrug off those interceptions, and he'll go right back out there slinging it. But then sometimes you're like, okay, Ben, can you at least acknowledge the fact you threw some bad picks and like not throw the ball deep every single time? Maybe you just don't have it today. And against Tennessee, their defense didn't necessarily make them punt. I think I saw the Steelers punt once in the whole game. I might have it wrong. What'd they do? Punt once or twice? Then all of a sudden, Ben Roethlisberger in the second half became an interception machine. They scored 27. And then they didn't score again the rest of the game. They had Tennessee down 27-7. Tennessee clawed its way back to 24-27. And, I mean, what do you want me to do? You want me to shame Tennessee? They had a drive to either win the game or to tie it. And I'm supposed to panic about Tennessee because their kicker, who has been perfect on kicks from 50-plus yards, but for whatever reason, as soon as he gets inside the 50, he's 5 for 11, and he misses the field goal. I'm supposed to be discouraged by Tennessee? I'm supposed to be afraid of what this could mean for them? No. I feel much, much more confident about Tennessee and their ability to fight, their ability to come back from a deficit. I feel much, much better about them than I do about the Steelers winning the game. Now, granted, yeah, the Steelers won the game. This is their first legitimate win. Tannehill, I thought in the first half, obviously didn't play great, but then he did play great. The team as a whole played great. Derrick Henry started to come alive a little bit, even though it wasn't his best rushing performance. But the team showed they have fight, and the Steelers, they were lucky that Gostkowski missed. Ryan Tannehill had a terrible grounding call. He should not have thrown the ball, but he did. And I guess before I continue with this, am I the only person who's noticed that the NFL is calling intentional grounding a lot more this season than they have in previous years? I feel like I'm seeing a lot more intentional grounding calls than I have ever seen before. And it's kind of caught me off guard. Like, I didn't expect it. I didn't expect to see this. In recent memory, it's felt like quarterbacks could get rid of the ball willy-nilly, and the only time they really called an intentional grounding was when the ball was egregiously thrown downfield, away from everybody, and that was the only time they'd actually call it. Other than that, they never really seemed to. Sometimes they would, and people would kind of go like, oh, there's a ref who's actually doing their job. This season, it seems like they're calling it a lot more. So you got the intentional grounding call. They get some of the yardage back. Gostkowski kicks a field goal. He misses it. The Steelers hold on to win. Who knows how overtime would have gone? I think it probably would have been whichever offense got the ball would probably win the game. So who knows? Might have come down to the coin toss. I guess we will never actually get to see it. The Pittsburgh Steelers, though, they won the game. They remain undefeated. And I still feel better about the Titans. I like their fight. I like how their defense played in the second half. They still gave up the yardage, but the thing was they were able to turn Ben Roethlisberger over. They were able to hold them out from getting any points. To shut out the Pittsburgh offense is no small feat. I still don't think they're a very big play offense outside of Claypool, really. They had some nice, plays for 10 yards, for 15 yards during the game against the Titans. But other than that, I still don't really see them as a big play offense. But for their ability to limit Pittsburgh the way they did in that second half, to not allow them to score a point, I thought was outstanding. I feel better about them. When it comes to the Rams against the Bears, if the Rams win the game, I'm not going to think anything of it. The thing is going to be if they lose the game, then I'm going to have to sit here and say, okay, so where do they rank in the NFC? In the NFC West, where do they really rank? Are they the second best team? Are they the third best team? Are they maybe even the fourth best team? Because the Niners are still fighting. And while Jimmy Garoppolo, he's still good for a pick every single game. It seems like he's good for a few bad throws. The team is still very well coached. They're still very creative on offense. Their defense still plays hard. The Cardinals, good offense. While it's inconsistent in the passing game, they can run the football and they're a big play team. And their defense has been excellent in terms of scoring. And the Seahawks are the Seahawks. We're going to have to really look and see, where does this Rams team really rank? Can they make noise in the playoffs? I don't know. I really don't. The NFC West is a mess. It is an absolute mess. Because all the teams are good. Really, all the teams are good. Who's the worst team in the division, right? If you say it is the Rams, wow, that's a pretty good division. If you say it's the Niners, yeah, it's a good division. Is it the Cardinals? It's still a really, really good division. So, I guess when I look at Monday night's game, I think the Rams are going to win. I do think the Rams are going to win, and it's mainly because I just do not have any faith in the Bears at all. I think they are frauds. But if the Rams do win, I don't think anything more of the Rams, and if they lose, then I am just going to question how legit they really are. In terms of Pittsburgh, I do have to say, I grossly underestimated the team. I thought going into the season they were a team with a quarterback coming off a Tommy John surgery, and it had never been done to a quarterback before, and it was in his throwing arm. I didn't know how he'd look. Ben Roethlisberger has never been known as a workout warrior in the offseason, so I didn't know what kind of shape he'd be in, but he's come back, and yes, granted, this game against the Titans was not his best showing. He did have the 3 picks, and on tip passes, he had tip balls just all day. The Tennessee Titans, they got their hands on so many of his passes. It wasn't his best showing, but his performance up until now, he's been the top half of the league quarterback in his performance. Pro Football Focus had him coming into this week as a top 12 quarterback. He has been great. The defense is there, and it is legit. And I guess you just kind of think to yourself, when they had AB and Le'Veon Bell, the Achilles heel of the Steelers was their defense. Their defense was just not good. It could barely stop anybody. And now this defense is legit, and their offense is probably more well-rounded, but you don't have that splash of AB, you don't have that dazzle of Le'Veon Bell, and Ben Roethlisberger isn't in his prime anymore. You just kind of think, what could they have done if they had a defense? What could they have done if they had this defense to back up that offense? We might have been talking about another Steelers dynasty. Obviously, there's no way to guarantee that. No way to prove it, but I guess that's when you just kind of sit there and you go, common sense, the offense was one of the highest scoring and broke records, and they were outstanding, and their defense couldn't stop me from scoring the football, so who knows. But all in all, good game between the Steelers and the Titans. I wish it was a late game, but it was on early. It is what it is, and then as for the Rams and the Bears, I think the Rams will win, but even if they do, it means nothing to me. Anyways, coming up next, final topic of the day, Aaron Rodgers. He had some quotes during a press conference last week that I thought were hilarious, and I need to get on the media here for a second. I really do, and I know technically I'm now count as part of the media, but I need to call it the media. That coming up next, final topic of the day. Thank you for tuning in.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment did a preview to Monday Night Football between the Rams and the Bears. I think the Rams will win the game, but I will not take anything away from it. And if they lose the game, I'm just going to sit back and start to question the legitimacy of the Rams. They've beaten up on the NFC East. That is where all of their wins have come. And there are only 2 games outside of the NFC they have lost. In one of them, they didn't look competitive. And then it was a shootout against the Bills. And go ahead and say whatever you want about that call at the end of the game that gave the Bills a fresh set of downs. Say whatever you want about it. Say it's a makeup call. I don't care. These things happen in the game. You need to play with the hand that you're dealt. And the Rams ended up losing the game. I am being consistent. I did the same thing to the Steelers. I will do the same thing for any team. If they're not beating good teams, if they're not facing good quarterbacks, good defenses, I will call the team out, and I will question how good they really are. I get it, you can only play what's on your schedule, but I can analyze your schedule, and I can make takeaways from it. With that being said, Aaron Rodgers last week in his press conference following his game against the Buccaneers, in which the Packers just got absolutely blown out, and while it looked like Rodgers and the Packers might run away with it, they were up 10-0. All of a sudden, it's 38 points by the Buccaneers, and the Packers could not find the end zone again. Following that game, though, and this is one of the things that really annoy me about the media, especially when it comes to press conferences. Sometimes I hear questions from people in the media, and I just ask myself, why did you think that was a good question? Like, you had all this time to think of a question to ask, and that's what you came up with? Of all the things you could ask them, and there's certain people in the media that will, or certain people in sports that will answer all the questions, right? Russell Wilson, he will answer every question. Andrew Luck, he will answer every question. Tom Brady will answer every single question. There's certain guys who have that kind of persona, who have that personality where even if the question is bad, they will give it a genuine answer and they will go on with their day. But then there's other guys, coaches and players, who when they hear a stupid question, they have no problem pointing it out. And when I think of the guys off the top of my head who do it, I think of like Bill Belichick. I think of Greg Popovich, head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. And I think of guys like Aaron Rodgers, who doesn't really seem to have the patience. So, some reporter, I don't know who he is, the poor guy, Aaron Rodgers just laid into him. He asked Aaron Rodgers, in a very shaky, uncertain kind of way, he basically asked him, do you think that teams are starting to figure you out? Following this loss against the Buccaneers, do you think teams are starting to figure you out? Keep this in mind. Heading into this game against the Buccaneers, Aaron Rodgers had thrown 13 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards, no interceptions, was completing well over 65% of his passes, and he was the number 1 ranked quarterback in the NFL. And then because of one game, against one of either the number 1 or number 2 best defense in the NFL, who is who don't need to blitz, but do, and create massive amounts of pressure, have one of the best performing secondaries, probably the best linebacker tandem, and one of the best defensive lines in football, this guy decided to ask Aaron Rodgers, do you think teams are starting to figure you out? Not team, because it was one team, but teams are starting to figure you out. And Aaron Rodgers simply replied with this, a direct quote. He said, 1 out of 5. And he left it at that. And obviously the tone of his voice and everything was very, very different in the way he said it. He did say it very, very sarcastically. He said it very, very like in your face. Are you stupid? Why'd you ask me that question? He did say it like that, and I get there's certain people out there that don't like it. They don't like the way athletes or coaches talk to the media. I get that. But man, I mean, come on. This is Aaron Rodgers. Coming into the game, he was the best quarterback in the NFL. He was playing the best quarterback in the NFL. And you decided to ask him that question, and then there was another guy later in the press conference who asked Aaron Rodgers if he was okay. And Aaron Rodgers asked him like what he meant, and he said, you seem a bit down. And I think Rodgers said something like, don't project like your feelings on me or whatever. Aaron Rodgers just wasn't having it. He wasn't having it, and he did say during the press conference as well, like, I can't dwell on this loss. We can't dwell on the loss. It's already Wednesday. We need to focus on Houston. And then what does he do against Houston? He tore them apart and was perfect, and Davante Adams took them apart. When Rodgers and Adams are on the field together, I mean, their chemistry together is just something to behold. Davante Adams comes back, has, I think, like 13 catches or so, like damn near 200 yards, multiple touchdowns. He's just amazing. And they just took Houston apart as I thought they would. And once again, it's Aaron Rodgers is at the top of his game, and this is the best he's looked in the last few years, and we move on. For whatever reason, the media tends to do this thing where they assign the blame to the wrong people, or they overreact, or they assign the credit to the wrong person. Like, the Browns beat the Bengals, right? And I honestly thought to myself, I was like, man, what are the odds that the headline following this game and throughout this next week, what are the odds that the headlines are going to be the Browns don't need OBJ, right? OBJ gets knocked out with a serious knee injury, and then Baker plays one of the best games I've ever seen him play against actually like a pretty solid defense. Like, they're not the most talented in the world, but the Bengals defense does play hard, and they have some talented players. I guess some players on that defense want out. Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap, they're tired of their role because of the fact they've basically been relegated to role players when before they were staples on that team. He plays one of his best half of footballs, was literally perfect. His only incompletion was a spike. Otherwise, he was 22 of 22 for damn near 300 yards and 5 touchdowns to no picks. Instead of giving Baker credit for getting his act together and playing well, I was like, how much you want to bet they're going to give OBJ the blame, and they're going to somehow figure out to flip this into a story about how Baker Mayfield and the Browns, they need to cut ways with OBJ and they need to trade him. This is just something that the media does. Right or wrong, and I think mainly wrong, it's just something that the media does. Like, I'm sitting back and I'm thinking to myself, if I was in the media during that session, I would have probably asked Aaron Rodgers something like, hey Aaron, you know that your record when you trail at any point in time during a game isn't great? Why do you think that is? Or I would have asked, hey Aaron, you seemed to double clutch it a lot after throwing that second interception. You seem to not be so sure about where you wanted to throw the football. Was there something that the defense started doing on the back end that was throwing you off? Were the blitzes making were the blitzes doing it? Was it something in the coverage? I would have probably asked, was there a player on the defense you thought you could take advantage of who actually turned out to just be a little bit better? Was there something, an area of the defense you thought? I wouldn't have asked, hey, Aaron, is the league figuring you out? Because now you're only 4-1. You're only 4-1. You just faced, at that point in time, what was it? The number 1 or number 2 defense in the NFL. Hey Aaron, do you have it? Do you still have it? Or are teams figuring you out? It's a dumb question. And this is that thing. Remember how I said that I like it when athletes talk? I like when athletes do sometimes talk about how good they are, when they sometimes actually let us see their personality and they come out and they show us a little bit of cockiness. I love it when people tear apart reporters. I love it. And I will say that unapologetically. I love watching whether it be a coach or whether it be a player or whoever, I love watching them tear players apart or tear the media apart. I love it. Now, in return, I like it when the media asks really tough questions. When the media presses a player to answer a question, I love that too. I love the pushback because I think there's questions to be asked. Like, here, let me give you an example. So, Antonio Brown, when he went to the Raiders, in his press conference to the Raiders, Antonio Brown completely contradicted himself in a matter of a few seconds. He said at one point when he was going to Oakland, he didn't care about his numbers, he just wanted to go there and win. He then later said that he wants to catch Jerry Rice, that he wants to catch his numbers. So he, in one breath, said he doesn't care about his numbers, he just wants to win. And then in the next breath, he said, I want to catch Jerry Rice. Oh, okay, so you want the numbers. So the numbers are still important to you. Not a single reporter pushed back on Antonio Brown. Not a single reporter came up with a question for that. And whether, and I don't know if there's some unwritten rule, if there's something that like you don't do it, or maybe just none of them thought of it. I have no idea. Maybe no one had the guts to ask. That is a question I would have asked, because that's fascinating to me. How a player can completely do a 180 with their statement like that. Push back. The media should not be afraid. Do not be afraid just because of the player's name to ask them a question, to push back on them. Do not be afraid. Push back. I love seeing it. I like it on both ends. Players, go ahead. Be mean to the media. Be rude. If they ask you a bad question that's just that's uncreative and just unthought out and it's a waste of your time, go ahead and give it a snarky answer. Like, don't insult the reporter, but like, go ahead and give him a snarky answer. Head coaches, I love it too. Do the same thing. Coordinators do the same thing. But media, I also like it when you push back on the players and the coaches. Do it more. I like to see it. I think we need to see more of it, because too many people in the media are afraid to challenge a guy like Bill Belichick or challenge a guy like Greg Popovich, and they're too afraid to challenge guys like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Russell. They're too afraid to challenge these athletes because they're afraid of what will happen to them, what kind of response they'll get. Man, push back. If you have a good point, push back. Now, how does this now, as for the Packers coming off of their win against the Texans, I get it, the Texans, they did score 20 points. They scored 13 of those 20 in the fourth quarter. It wasn't a competition. They scored all of their 20 in the second half. The Packers still managed to score 14 in the second half. It wasn't a competition. I thought the Texans looked outmatched the entire time, and Aaron Rodgers looked incredible, and the Texans are really one of the worst teams in the league. I so blew it. They're 1-6. I mean, they're done. I so blew it when I said of all the teams to be 0-2, they had the best chance to come back and win. I was dead wrong, right? I said they would lose their next game against the Steelers. They'd be 0-3, but I thought they could still do it. They have won one of their last of their last 5. It has not been good. It has not been pretty. They're a bad team. But I look at the remainder of the Packers schedule, or at least their upcoming games, right? They're going to face the Vikings. I think they'll win. They're going to face the Niners. That will be an interesting test because their last 2 games against the Niners, the Packers have not looked good, and specifically Aaron Rodgers looked terrible. Then they face, the Jaguars, the Colts, the Bears, the Eagles, the Lions, the Panthers, the Titans, the Bears. They don't really face another good defense. The Packers realistically could finish this season going like 14-2. Now, I think one of these games they'll probably they will get beat. They could repeat this season and be 13-3 again and be the number 1 seed. Because they actually do have a semblance of a defense. They've got a really good secondary, or at least Jair Alexander is a very good player. Amos is a good player. Their pass rush is still good with Smith and Preston and Kenny Clark. And Aaron Rodgers, of course, is outstanding. And their offensive line has been outstanding outside of that game against Tampa. And the receiving core is good. Eventually they'll get Allen Lazard back and he'll be healthy. But as long as they have Devontae Adams, it seems like Aaron Rodgers is fine. Aaron Jones, he didn't even play. They still did what they did. The Packers are probably going to finish as the best team in the NFC. That's just how it seems like it's going to be. They will probably finish as the best team in the NFC. I just told you guys the remainder of their schedule. Outside of the Niners, because of what the Niners did to them last year, what other team do you really see them losing to? I think they could maybe drop to maybe to the Titans. Maybe they could lose to the Titans. Maybe to the Colts if their defense shows up. But this team is going to be 14-2, 13-3, 12-4. They will be one of the best teams in the NFC, and I really do believe this team has a shot to win the Super Bowl. I do. Last year, I didn't, because I didn't think their offense looked good enough. This year, their offense is good enough to win the Super Bowl, and their defense, you would hope that maybe at some point in time it does come around. Alexander has been great for them, and again, their pass rush is still great. But you'd hope it come around a bit better because it hasn't been exactly what it was last year. But to question Aaron Rodgers and to ask him if the league has figured him out after one game, after one loss, after your first loss of the season, to ask if it's figuring them out is ridiculous. You know who I think is getting figured out? Josh Allen. And I will talk about him a little bit more in my next podcast. I think if there's any quarterback in the league that's getting figured out, it's Josh Allen. Now, they still won their game against the Jets, but are we just going to ignore what Allen's done these last 3 weeks, or really what he hasn't done? I think that's more of the concern. But Rodgers, he's fine. They lost to a good team. Tampa Bay is a really good team. Yes, at times they're a little bit inconsistent on offense, but they've added AB now. They're going to be even better. This is Brady, one of his best friends apparently. So he has AB and Gronk and Evans. That offense is there, and that defense outside of they lost Vita Vea, which is a huge loss, but it's still one of the best in the league at everything.
It was just a dumb question, and I'm glad Aaron Rodgers responded the way he did. The media needs to be better in both the facets. Get better questions, and push back on athletes a bit more. Don't be afraid. Push back on coaches a bit more. I am down to see it. Good show. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you, please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us out. Also, if you can, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.